Hello and welcome to Iconoclasting with Sarah Smith. I, as always, am your host, Sarah Smith. And today we have Ilana Morris, who I keep calling Ilana Maher, and that is not her name. If y'all know her, that they're two different people. She is OBM and Systems Strategist, and she is a founder of IAM Business Solutions. Hi, Ilana.
Hey Sarah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation today.
I'm psyched to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me. So, as you know, this podcast focuses on the untraditional, non traditional, nonlinear pathways that people take to get where they are. So, with that in mind, tell us how you got here to IAM Business Solutions. What made you build it? Where did you start? I'd like to know all of it.
Yeah, that's like a really long story. Strap in, I guess. In 2011, I started as an educator, so I was a teacher. I worked with second graders who were learning English as their second language in school. And unfortunately, during that year, I got quite sick. I was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer and I was only 25. So I
My
left.
goodness.
I took the time to deal with my health, manage my mental health. And then when I felt ready to go back to work after about a year and a half, I knew I wanted to stay in education, but I wasn't sure what that would look like. And so I found a role as an office manager. I later became the office or the operations assistant, sorry, at a charter school network. So they had two K to 12 charter schools in New York City. I became a data manager there, and then I did some further data management. Now we're up to like 2015. I decided I didn't want to continue coding. I was in SQL. I was in Stata, I think is how you say it a lot as well. And it just wasn't for me. I missed the kids. I missed the families. So I went back to operations in a school-based capacity in Brooklyn. So that's managing attendance, transportation, uh, a variety of different tasks throughout the school, serving as the liaison between the parents and the school, getting services, recommending services to the social worker, things like that. And after or during lockdown and the pandemic, that became a lot of tech support because the
Mm,
students were at home learning. We were, one laptop per child school, which was great, but the children were breaking the laptops faster than Dell, the company, could repair them, which, is not anyone's fault, but it really became taxing. I knew every
yeah.
child in my 600-person school who was impacted by COVID, which was a lot. And I just got tired and burnt out and compassion fatigue, all those things. And I had heard, I'd seen all these videos on Instagram, TikTok saying, you can be a virtual assistant. You don't need like all these things. And I was like, I could do that. Like I had all the delusion to think I could do that on the side, leave my job and get like a corporate job. And the
Mhm.
corporate job never came, but the VA clients came. And then one of my clients was like, you would be a great online business manager. And I was like, I didn't know that was a job. And so she helped me find a training program. I did the training program and here we are.
I have so many questions. I am filled with
Yes.
questions. So, what was your like, did you go to college for teaching?
Yeah, no. So I went to college, undergrad. I did political science and Spanish undergrad, and I thought I was going to go to law school. I
Okay.
realized I did not want to go to law school, and teaching was kind of like the family business. Both my parents were
Interesting.
educators. My grandmother was an educator. I was surrounded by educators. And so the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, wait, that is what I want to do. And so I went and I got my master's in education separately.
My gosh. So
Yeah.
you had okay, so wow.
When I saw what this podcast was about, I was like, I'm perfect for this."
And that's amazing. Okay. And then to go from teaching into an office manager role and then operations and then data is
Yeah.
crazy.
It sounds really crazy, right? But when I was in those roles, I was doing a lot with because every school has what's called like a student information system and SIS,
Mhm.
and there's very specific ones that you can use. It's not like a CRM where, there's
Mhm.
like 200 to choose from. There's a
Yeah.
few that do the job and do the job well. And usually
Oh.
in a big school system, the city will have their own student information system. So
Mhm.
in New York City, for example, I went to their public schools from like I don't know, like let's say 1990 to 1995. By the time I was working in the schools, they still had my records from my childhood in that system.
N
So I was able to, like, look my attendance up from when I was a kid, and it was built in, like, the '80s. It was called Automate the System, ATS, and it looked like that black screen from, like, MS-DOS back in the day, and
Yes.
everything was, like, a four-letter code, and you
Yes.
could only run it on, like, Internet Explorer, so it was a whole thing when they stopped updating Internet Explorer, they had to, like, do something else, and so because I was working at a network level, I really saw the back end of the student information system. And one of my colleagues was really good with it, and he started training me on how to use it. And then I saw him doing things in Excel and doing calculations really quickly. And I was just like, "How are you doing that?" And so I kind of made him train me on how to do it. And so that was kind of the start of that data journey for me, and it continued as I kept working on the back end of different systems all across because I was also in a charter school system where
Yeah.
almost every charter school in America, like, if you have a waiting list, you're using one software to do it, and I learned I was like an early adopter kind of learning these softwares or figuring them
Yeah.
out. I I just even if the UX is bad, I'll learn it if I have to, you know? And so I think
Yeah.
that really uh helped throughout my career.
Okay. I mean, how did you go into these different jobs? I got asked yesterday, and this ties into something, but I got asked yesterday about how do I get into the work I'm doing? How am I successful, right? I do a lot of operations and cleaning up junk from people's operation systems, right? And making sure organizations can like move forward and scale and grow because they have good methodologies and the people get it. And like working on strategy to execution, that's a big one. So how do I get there? And the thing that I said was a lot of it is talking to people, understanding, like putting your hand up, saying, "This is what I can do. Here's what I'm excited to learn." And it sounds like that was a similar thing for you. But was there a particular thing you did that helped you get into like these really divergent paths?
I think at the core of it, it's knowing what my skill set was, right? So
Huh?
I knew I was organized. I knew my way around an Excel spreadsheet. That was like a big one. People are still using Excel spreadsheets, doing VLOOKUPs, index match functions,
Yep.
all of that.
Pivot
Plus,
tables. Those were
pivot
big.
tables was like the big thing back then because we're talking
Yeah.
about the early 2000s. And and the other piece was the piece of learning these different databases because in the school system, if you knew that MS-DOS like system, you were irreplaceable
Yeah.
because everyone wanted to learn how to use it or be perfect. Every school needs someone who's proficient at that across New York City,
Yes.
the five boroughs.
Mhm.
And so I knew if I learned the codes that I needed to know every day, the 4-letter ones, if I could do it quickly, if I could get in and
Mhm.
out and get people what they needed quickly, I would be irreplaceable. And so those when I realized that I was learning those skill sets and that they would make me irreplaceable and that I was able to translate what I was pulling out of them into
Mhm.
actionable items, right? So these are all the students that don't have all their immunizations in the system. Here's the next step is I'm going to contact every single parent and document every time I've contacted them. Right? So
Yeah.
it's not just that initial pulling the data because
Mhm.
people look at data and they don't know what they're looking at. It's the ability
Yes.
to say, here's where we're at, here's where we need to be, and here are all the steps in between. And
Yeah.
and I think when I went in for interviews and when I talked to people, they realized I had those skills, and that was the selling point for me. I think now in what I do as an OBM and a systems strategist is as the OBM, a lot of the clients I work with, they're the visionary. They're like, I want to make this workshop happen. I want to make this new program. And my
Yeah.
job is to sit there and say, that's great. I'll support you in doing that. But like, let's take 20 steps back and look at all the little pieces that go into launching that new thing. Right. And
Mhm.
I think that small business owners, especially and founders who don't have a lot of time and they want to be the visionary and focus on the things that only they can do in the business,
Mhm.
they don't want to sit there and start writing a task list. They just want it to happen without being involved.
Yeah, I am also guilty of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's great. We wouldn't
Mhm.
have a lot of the businesses without the visionary piece, but I don't really care about that. Like you
Right.
go be the visionary of your business and I'll support everything to make that happen, right?
So tell me more, and I wrote this down so I wouldn't mess it up, but tell me more about OBM, online business management.
Yeah.
I think you said it must have been when we were talking earlier, or maybe earlier in
Mhm.
this thing, but you said you took a course for it. Somebody introduced you to it. And how did you decide, like, yes, this is what I'm doing? And tell me, what is it first?
Yeah, I think that in the online business space, there's a lot of kind of overlap in this type of role. I think some I think a big portion, right? They say online business managers manage digital teams, digital products, digital projects. So, for some clients, I'm doing team management. For some, or for all, I do project management. And then some of them have small teams that need managing, some don't. It depends where they are in the stage. I'll support hiring. So for one of my clients, I oversee our content coordinator. So I'm reviewing her blog post drafts, newsletter drafts, making sure the process and the projects stay on track, making sure
Hmm.
we don't lose sight of certain one off projects, things like that.
So it sounds like it's almost more of like a chief of staff derivative,
Yeah,
maybe?
I think that a lot of my clients, I fill that role for. And
Yeah.
then when I do the system strategy, that is much more specific and project based. So, for example, a client will come to me, they'll have purchased software, and then they're like, I have this software, it was recommended to me. I don't know what to do with it. I need help setting it up. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to happen at every stage of your service delivery? And
Yeah.
let's map that out and then use the software to do that.
How did you even, obviously, you've got the tooling and the technical side down.
Mhm.
How did you get into this? How did you even know about it? How did you figure out the name for it? And how do you keep developing it?
Yeah, I think, it's obviously a very multifaceted question. For me,
Mhm.
I didn't know online business management was an option, right? I
Right.
didn't know that I could be a digital, whatever, fractional chief operating officer or chief of staff. I didn't know what any of these terms were. I came
Mhm.
from a very public service background. Corporate business was all foreign to me, and I've had to learn it all. And
Yeah.
starting as a virtual assistant gave me a lot of exposure to things. I actually just made a post about this on social media. Everyone's like, "Oh, you need to niche down. You need to like pick your services, blah blah blah." But I didn't know what services I even like delivering because I didn't have the same exposure that a lot of people going into business have. And so I said yes to a lot of things until I realized, okay, I don't want to be doing basic scheduling. It stresses me out, especially with fast moving calendars like many of these people have. I want to be able to send a booking link and then have the booking happen, right? And so, a client of mine literally said to me, she's like, "You're not just a virtual assistant. I want you to like you can serve as an online business manager." And
Mhm.
so I did some research. I came back to her and I was like, "Here are some programs for OBMs. Like these are the options." And she helped me like choose one and go through it and supported me through that.
Mhm.
And then I did like a lot of networking. I got referrals for my services from her as well, from other people I met in the networking. And then when I got online, I started seeing people talk more about system strategy, automations, and I kind of sought those things out on my own of like how to connect different softwares together that
Mm.
don't
Yeah.
integrate naturally. And so that kind of helped me piece together the system strategy and like the integrator part of what I do.
Mhm. That's so cool. And just talking to people, being able I feel like everything we do in general as humans, we can't do without other people. We require that community of some sort, and it's so important. We can't do anything alone.
No, and I think that's, like, the myth, right? Is like, "Oh, you pull yourself up by the bootstraps," but, like, no one can have a business on their own or, like, figure it all out on their own. There's other people that help you get to where you wanna go, right? Whether it's a client, a friend, a loan you get, a business
Yeah.
coach, whoever it is, right? You need other people in your life that can help you get where you're going, and that's in all areas, not just business, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So this has been wonderful. I have one final question for
Yeah.
you, which is what are one, two, three things that you want to tell somebody listening to this podcast that you want them to know about your non-traditional, nonlinear journey that maybe they have a question about or they want to know more about or they're unsure about, something like that.
Yeah, I think that for me, and I hope for whoever's listening, you take a step back and see that your experience and your past experience is much more transferable than you might think at the outset. And for me, I didn't know that the work in data management, databases, operations inside these like public institutions would ever become a foundation for my business. We were talking about this before. I never heard the word entrepreneur growing up. I never heard the word founder. I didn't know what those things could look like. And for me, what seems like a nonlinear path really was more about skill accumulation. And I'm still able to go in and recognize patterns and solve problems just in a different way.
Mhm. Yeah, that's amazing. I have a mentor slash friend of mine that we nicknamed her precog because she can recognize those patterns. Yeah, yeah, it was so cool. So, well, thank you so much.
Thank
Oh,
you. You're like the second person recently who's brought that movie up to me.
really? That's so funny. I mean,
Like,
this was like
within the
2019.
last week,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's weird.
yeah,
I don't even know what that movie is from because I live under a rock, but yeah, we called her precog. It was very funny.
that's hilarious.
Yeah. So, well, great. Thank you so much. This is wonderful. And I'm so glad to meet you.
You too, thanks so much, Sarah.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Bye.